to another episode of Connections. Today I'll be speaking with a wonderful tenor, Paul Ettore Tabone. Hi, welcome, Paul. So good to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
How is everything by you? So you are in Australia during the lockdown, or?
No, I'm in the UK.
Okay.
I'm based in London. I've been in Europe now for about 13 years. But I am Australian, obviously, by my accent, you can tell.
Well, you are known as the tenor from Oz, right? So yeah.
That's right.
So what have you been doing? Obviously, you were in Phantom and then COVID hit, and I think that show had to close.
Yep, that's right. I mean, I was in Phantom for 4 years. It was a long time for any musical. It's not usual in the world of musical theatre that you are able to, be in a show and buy a house and everything in a matter of one contract. So I was very lucky that I was able to do that. In 4 years, I was going to be stopping doing Phantom anyway, just because I wanted to change. But COVID came and it did shut down that production early, which is such a shame.
But you'd actually been in another production of Phantom before, right? So Love Never Dies, which people maybe are just starting to get to know more about. People are still surprised that there's a sequel. So tell us about that.
Well, look, the sequel to The Phantom of the Opera had a lot of controversy, and it was actually the first production I ever did when I first graduated university in Australia. And it was a beautiful, one would say even luxurious production. It was like $12 million.
Wow.
And Andrew Lloyd Webber gave Simon Phillips a carte blanche just to redo this production. It didn't do very well in the West End because I think the music is gorgeous. The story is beautiful, but there was a certain degree of opulence that you need to do when you're talking about Phantom of the Opera that the production didn't have. And when, they threw $12 million at it and rearranged a few things, the show was just beautiful. Like, I think the show in Australia had over 2,000 cues and I met 6,000 light bulbs, like just in a beautiful production, and did quite well, in Australia. I left Australia after that time to study opera, and I went down a very more, serious route. But then later reprised the role in Germany, in Hamburg, where we did exactly the same production. It was a bit smaller, but nonetheless the same production, just in German. And it was a beautiful experience once again.
And did they air that during COVID, like the recorded version of that? They did. Okay.
Yes. During my Australian contract, Universal Studios recorded the production of Phantom of Love Never Dies in Australia. And it's lucky because I don't think that production, it was just enormous, and it'd be very difficult to do that production anywhere else unless it's a huge theatre. So, they recorded in a beautiful Dolby surround sound way, as, a great production values as well. So it's there forever and was broadcast on TV during that time.
And that's pretty special because you mentioned that was kind of your first role after college. So to have that memento. Let's go back further though. So obviously as a kid, were you singing musicals? Were you listening to opera? What was the...
Yeah, I mean, it's been a very strange journey for me. I'm from a town in far north Queensland in Australia. It's a very small town. Okay. One would say in the middle of whoop whoop in Australia, which means in the middle of nowhere.
Okay.
So I grew up as a country boy. We have sugarcane and pumpkins and watermelons, and I even had like a pet wallaby. It's like a little kangaroo, and we had pet crocodile. I mean, we are very Australian, in that respect. So I grew up doing this as a child, and really in a community that was sport dominated. So me finding this passion for opera, even at 3 years old, seeing Pavarotti on the TV and being infatuated with this sound. My parents were, they didn't understand what to do, during that time. But when I told them, Mum and Dad, I'd like to play piano, they knew that was something that I had to do. And, my parents sacrificed a lot. We didn't come from much, we were on a farm, and they brought me to piano lessons every week. And I stuck to it because it was something I loved. It wasn't singing, but it was something. And I think for me, the reason why I chose this something was because it was safe.
Okay.
as a young boy in this community, I didn't want to put myself into a bracket of being a singer because, I was out of fear of bullying, I suppose. But this passion just grew and grew and grew. And this is a funny story, but when I was about 13, my piano teacher at the time, Mrs. Phillips, she said to me, she's like, Paul, can you sing at this funeral for me? Because the girl that I had organized can't do it. And I said, no, I don't sing. I don't sing. And she's like, please, I'm asking you, can you please do this for me? I'm like, look, give me the night to study and let me see what I can do for you. I mean, she was very good to me as well, like with my music and stuff. So I went home and the song was Amazing Grace, and I was practicing at home and my mum comes into my room and she's like, Paul, you've got a great voice, love. And I'm like, oh, Mum, can you get out of my room, please? But, from then on, she walked outside and she's like, sing for your father. And I said, oh, Mum, I will not be singing for both of you. This is so embarrassing. And the next day I sang for my teacher and she put the piano lid down and she's like, Paul, you have a wonderful voice and you're not very good at piano, love, because you don't study. So I kind of just straight away started doing singing. So I did Trinity College classical music. I did grade 7 in 1 year. And then within that one year after, so about, I had 3 years before I finished school, I finished up until grade 8 for music theatre as well. And then went to university and did a Bachelor of Musical Theatre at the Central Queensland Conservatorium in Mackay.
So it sounds like your voice had already broke at the time that you started to really go into it. Is that right?
Well, look, at 13, I mean, it was on the verge. I did
right
go
there.
through,
okay.
Yeah, it was still on its way. But, I didn't even have a singing teacher, during that time. It was just something that naturally came to me, whether it was because I was just infatuated with listening to Pavarotti and somehow learnt how to sing via him, But I never had like a formal training until I went to university. That's the reality of it for me. As much as I'd love to say I was trained by Pavarotti, I think it was the closest thing I actually had to a teacher at that time. Yeah.
Well, I think, having that good example to listen to, though, is so important because, and a voice that, it worked out because it ended up being you were a tenor also, because some kids, they look up to, a completely wrong voice type and then they run into issues, but that is amazing. So when you were in school, you did get a couple of awards being honored as, distinguished for your talents in school. So what was that like?
I'm very grateful, to the university. I got into two universities. I got into the Queensland Conservatorium, which is, let's say, the most prestigious out of the both. But that time it was very difficult for my mum as well. I was the first child to leave home, and she said to me, she's like, please just go to the one that's closer, And I listened because I needed their support too. I wasn't going to do something that, I was going to go against their will. But I'm so glad I did, because I got this incredible one-on-one treatment, in a smaller university. That, the relationships I made now are relationships that I even still have today, with my teachers and my lecturers from university, especially Kim Kirkman. Now, Kim was the original manager and creator of the group, the 10 Tenors, the international touring ensemble. And, that for me was huge. I had someone who had hands-on international performing experience as my teacher and my mentor. That's not what you get all the time. You don't get that connection. You get a lot of people who have, studied books and educators that have just done degrees and never had true hands-on experience. So I was really lucky to have this wonderful experience at my doorstep. And receiving those awards, it was lovely. Sometimes I think how my attitude was at university, I did not deserve them because it was my first time away from home and, I could have studied a lot harder. But, I think now I can reflect back on that and think, look, what, I have actually done really well for myself. And I'm really happy that, they encouraged me the way they did, because without that, I don't know where I'd be.
Now, you did a production called The Dirty Apple. Was that like a new musical that happened, or a new opera?
Yes, it's a new opera. That was actually just before Love Never Dies. I did this production called Dirty Apple, which was a youth opera in with Opera Queensland in Brisbane. Yeah, very interesting. It was about cyberbullying. Yeah, it just an incredible turn of events. I mean, the world is so small. I joke about this all the time, but I was an understudy to the lead guy at that time. His name is Jordan Pollard. Anyway, Jordan ended up being in Phantom of the Opera with me on West End, and we just like the world is just so small because when you're from a small little country town, and I mean Brisbane is not a huge city. It is a we say it's like a glorified country town. It's just it's not big at all. To meet in London and have that connection, it's wonderful, and it was a really good building block for me to have that experience as a young person freshly graduating.
Now, you mentioned your teacher had worked with the 10 tenors, and obviously Pavarotti himself was very keen to really bring classical music to a lot of different people, and he did a lot of collaborations. So was that always just something for you that you wanted to kind of cross over and do all these different things?
Yeah, I mean, it's a huge passion for me. Of course, Kim Kirkman was my teacher at university, but when I moved over to Italy, I made a lot more connections, obviously, in opera. And the biggest full circle moment for me is when I arrived in Italy within, I think, 2 months or a few weeks. I got an email. I applied for an audition for the Luciano Pavarotti Foundation. And Nicoletta Mantovani wrote me this email. She's like, I'd love you to come and audition. And, at that point, I was fresh off the boat. I'd only studied opera in Australia for only 5 years. So I was, very uneducated at that time, and I said, yes, I'd love to come and sing for you. That would be an honor because it's, the whole story of Pavarotti and how much that meant to me. And she gave me an audition time and I went there and she was like, I'd like you to sing something that you love. And I sang O Sole Mio, and I sang also Maria from West Side Story because, I had Questo e Quella as well from Rigoletto, as I think I sang as well, but she was interested in everything other than opera at that time. And it just was like this huge full circle for me because there I was singing for Pavarotti's wife again, like in this situation where he had inspired me my whole life. And from that moment on, I realized what it is I truly wanted. I sang opera. I did opera. I made, quite a few debuts in Italy and internationally in Romania and Germany. And but my true passion was exactly the same thing that Pavarotti started. And that was to bring the music worlds together. So there wasn't this elitist operatic, thing that we have going on at the moment, which is, I think, the reason for the decline in the attendance of under 30s, throughout the world. So it was a huge moment for me to be re-inspired. And, from there, she put me into this production, which was a Pavarotti heritage production, or I don't want to say tribute show, but it was a memoriam concert that we did in New York on Broadway and in Italy, throughout Italy. And it was this like a Pavarotti and Friends concert. You remember these huge ones they used to do in Modena in New York, and it just felt like home to me, So I was completely inspired, and from then on, it's been my absolute goal to keep doing the work that he has done. And slowly yet surely, I'm trying to build those worlds together. I am a classical tenor when I sing, but my music is definitely something completely different. It says operatic moments, but the new music that I'm producing at the moment is very, popular with hints of opera. And I'm trying to encourage those people to come to us and maybe just give opera a chance.
Yeah, and what's interesting is there's so much crossover now. I think like people don't realize, even I was watching Bridgerton, and they put I think Taylor Swift's Love Story, it becomes
That's
this
right.
lovely, beautiful, and people enjoy it, and maybe they don't make the connection of what the genre is yet, but that's the great thing, that people are really trying to bring attention to it, that this is, you like this, so there's so much more that you could enjoy.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. It's our goal should be to inspire people, young people, to the thrill of the human voice. And if that gives that thrill during a recording or a live performance, that's going to go, oh, well, is that opera? Because maybe I should go and listen to something, and that gets them to a seat where we can encourage them to then watch La Boheme or a Puccini opera that's not, as hardcore as, something, like Stravinsky or whatnot. But, this is what we need to do. And I think it's our responsibility as classical crossover artists to continue to strive to help save our wonderful art form.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell us then about This Is Me. So that's your debut album. Were you recording that while you were in Phantom, or is that something that happened during COVID?
That was something that completely happened in COVID. Okay. I mean, 8 shows a week in Phantom, it was just impossible to do anything else. It's my role is, it's a supporting principal role, Ubaldo, but it's a huge sing. You have to walk out and you have to sing top C straight away. I think in total, in 4,000 years, I did over 8,000 top Cs, in that production. Like, it's so vocally demanding. I could never do that in an 8-show week. And as soon as COVID hit, I just knew. I said, now is the time, and I had the time to produce my own album. That's not something, I didn't wait around for a label. I didn't wait around for someone to say, oh, we're doing this. Obviously Robin Smith is my producer and a very close friend that I made during my time at the Pavarotti Foundation. And he has been an absolute godsend with this production that I've made. But I was able to do everything myself. He wanted to do it, but I got to see every asset of that album. The arrangements, the songs that I chose, the reasons why, everything has a special meaning to me. And I don't think I could have a product that I could be more proud of, because everything on there is something really special for me.
Yeah. Do you have, I guess it would be impossible, but I was going to say, do you have a favorite? So let's change that question. Well, when you were recording it, did you have one that kind of surprised you that went really, really quickly, it was done, and then maybe another one that ended up taking a little longer and then developed in a different way than you were originally thinking? Or
yes, I can answer those 100%. So I Am Australian. That song really took a different direction for me. It surprised me how well it suited the classical crossover sound, but more so, it surprised me the reaction of people who aren't even Australian, who wrote to me saying, I listened to this and feel proud, to be Australian when they're not even Australian. Like, I think that's special, that for me was surprising. The one that completely changed was Till I Hear You Sing. I mean, I went in there with this very stock standard version of Till I Hear You Sing from Love Never Dies. And my producer was like, it's good, but it's good. That was it. And he's like, let's work this. I'm going to talk to the sound engineer, who is also an incredible guitarist. His name's Maxime. And the next day I came back and they had taken the vocals and mixed it just with electric guitar. And it was, for me, I was like, it's great.
This is it. Yeah.
So this is it, something so different than the orchestral thing that I had before, and suits the style so well. Again, trying to get people in with some kind of popular, contemporary, commercial sound, and maybe enjoy that moment of opera.
Now, do you have, when you're looking for crossover pieces, do you have like certain elements that you look at, like a strong melody or something, or is it the lyrics that kind of draws you to a piece?
I think it's a bit of both. I mean, I'm also I don't want to just start going down a commercial route, and I mean, I love Josh Groban, but personally, I feel like the way that music is going now is very commercial. That's kind of lost that beautiful operatic-y elements. I really want to stay true to that kind of whole thing. I don't want to necessarily pick music that hasn't got beautiful melodies, or can't lend itself to the goal, which is to help save opera and help to encourage people into that field. I'm doing this amazing new arrangement of Creep from Radiohead, and it is very borderline for me. I mean, I was extremely impressed by the production of it. We recorded it last week, and it's just cool. I think it shows both worlds.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to be a really awesome tool to help people to feel and understand and maybe even enjoy opera. So I'm really excited to share that in the coming weeks, which is great. But yeah, I think that's very important to have beautiful melodies and everything that everyone expects of opera, to be touched and to have feelings. So yeah.
So now you're saying Creep, is that possibly a single or is that part of an album?
I've got 4 singles that are going to be released over the next 6 months. Creep is one of them. I have this incredible new song called Sole, which is written by Robin. Now, for those of you who don't know who Robin Smith is, he is a producer, arranger, and composer. And I mean, he's written songs for Andrea Bocelli. He for Pavarotti, he wrote Ti Adoro, the song Ti Adoro. So, Cher's Believe. He's done so many amazing songs for so many amazing people, but his passion is this classical crossover sound. Amazing. And he's written this amazing song called Sole. It just is beautiful. I can't wait to share that with you. I've done a great arrangement of You'll Never Walk Alone, which I'll share, a little bit of music theatre. I can't not do that.
Yeah.
And also I've done a fantastic new classical crossover arrangement of Shallow from Lady Gaga and Bradley Cooper. So and that's with a musical theatre star from here on London's West End. So I can't wait to share that as well. But yeah, some really cool kind of new things just to see how audiences react.
I love it. So we'll be looking forward to that. And again, I love that one of them is a new song, because classical crossover tends to be such a repeating and doing all these wonderful new treatments of songs, which is great too, but we also do need the infusion of new music to kind of give it.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
agreed.
So during COVID, you obviously recorded an album, you've been promoting it. You've also been teaching. So what has that experience been, online or in person? I'm not sure what the restrictions allowed.
No, I've definitely been doing it online. Okay. I mean, I teach. I love teaching. I when I finished Phantom, I didn't need to work. I was already teaching while I was teaching. Singing at Phantom every day. So just adding to the a million things that I do every day in my everyday life. But it's very important for me. I'm an opera singer. I've spent the last 10 years learning the Malocchi technique in Italy, which is a part of the affondo. And this is a technique that here in the UK no one really knows or understands. And all these young singers who have come to me now, I think I was teaching at 40 at one point during lockdown as well. It was really important for me to share that technique because people were seeing huge success with it. And Arturo Malocchi in Italy, this school is very small. I think only 3 people teach it now. So it was important for me to pass that tradition along as well. But yeah, I've had a great time. I have no regrets. I love teaching. I love passing on and helping young singers in musical theatre and classical. And it's something that I will always continue to do, even as a performer, because it's important for us that we pass on tradition and help and mentor young people as well.
Yeah, and I think it's important that someone of your caliber that's actually doing the performing is teaching too. Not that it's not just great to have straight teachers, because I have, if someone studies pedagogy, I think they have a great understanding also. But when you have that performing aspect, like you mentioned with your teacher, that's just incredible for the students to get.
Yeah, it's hands-on. I'm passionate about that subject. We have these conversations all the time, but I believe teaching singing is only one very small part of this whole process. You don't necessarily these days, Natasha, have to be good to be successful. You have to know how to promote yourself. You have to know how to behave, how to start, how to build your profile. This is what's important. So when, all these kids come to me, yes, I can guarantee that I'm teaching a technique that I can rely on myself and I know is a great technique. But I'm also telling them exactly what they need to do to be able to build profile as a performer, making connections, making social media, all of these things that build us. Singing is this big compared to the requirements that we need as singers, isn't it? It's a complete whole package.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy that you mention it. Obviously, like when you're in a show, you're really getting to do those performances. But for a concert artist and that sort of thing, the amount of performing versus the amount of like promotion and all that behind the scenes, it's really little compared to all the other work you have to do.
That's right. That's right. It's more, the performing of it is this big compared to the rest of it, you know, and then also keeping those people engaged, you
Yes.
know, between concerts. You know, it's a very big job. People in general, I think, don't understand how much work we have to do as singers. You know, it's not just let's go and sing on the stage, you know, 4 hours a week or whatever. We are working all the time, you know, all the time promoting, all the time doing admin to make sure that that product of 4 hours is of quality, you know? So yes, a lot to learn for a lot of people.
And during the quarantine, I believe you also spent some time raising money for some of the young artists.
That's right. Yeah, I raised, I think, over £2,000 during that time. It was a very quick
Awesome.
campaign. I didn't expect it to make some headway, but you know, we've had some very generous people to look after these young singers who couldn't necessarily earn an income to continue studying, which is so sad.
Yeah.
You know, so very important. And I mean, we all did our part to do a little bit of charity work to help people. You know, I was giving free lessons as well. I gave one a week during that whole lockdown period to people who needed it, you know, whether it be for auditions or whatnot. You know, we have to help each other in a time like this. It was something we never had planned, and we've just got to support each other. I was very lucky. I had a job. I've got a beautiful house. A lot of people weren't that lucky, and if I can do that, then I think the world would be a better place.
So there's been a lot of discussions, obviously, about during lockdown, you know, everyone's been doing free shows, like you said, they're all doing their part. But now what can the audience members really do? Because maybe, you know, like the governments and such, it's kind of been like retrain, do something else. So what can they do to kind of show their support? Is it like calling somebody? Is it just making sure they get out to see the live shows now? What do you think?
Yeah, I think we saw a lot of people using music, using film, using
Mhm.
TV as a medium of entertainment during lockdown.
Yeah.
You know, it was very sad to see so many performers in general having to suffer
Yeah.
when the biggest, most used facet of this whole time was entertainment for people who were in homes. You know, I feel like in the UK, the government forgot us. You know, they forgot singers in the world. The singers, the entertainers were forgotten.
Yeah.
You know, people would say, oh, they are the, you know, it's a luxury. You know, it's a luxury job. You know, they are the down here, you know, but it was everybody watching and listening to music during that time that was helping them survive. You know, kind of mind blows me that whole concept. But you're exactly right. People have to get out and see shows again, help stimulate the economy. You know, in here, we are talking billions of pounds, the
Yeah.
theatre district stimulates the economy. I'm assuming it would be something very similar in Broadway. The more that we can get out and support young artists as well, you know, as much as you know, as it doesn't happen anymore, I've got this gentleman in Scotland, and he is a patron, a true patron, one of the patrons that don't exist anymore. And he helps support young artists all the time. He
Amazing.
sends me money and lets me give artists, you know, lessons for free. I mean, these kind of gestures is what's going to help the core of their performing community. And I encourage everyone to do the same if they can.
I love that. Yeah. And any little thing, even if it's just like at the very basic level, making sure you stream the music, first of all, and then buy it if you can, and then get
Yeah.
out to the live shows. We've all been cooped up. We've all been getting these free shows. Like you said, let's go. So do you have any live shows coming up, Paul?
Yes, I do. I will be going to Australia on the in 15 days. I'm leaving to Australia for 1 year, and I'll be doing Phantom of the Opera at the Sydney Opera House, which is something that's been
Amazing.
a dream of mine. So I'm really excited for that. Yeah.
And then you've got the new singles coming out also over the next 6 months. And do
Yep,
you
that's
think you'll
right.
do another album again?
Yes, I mean, we're always constantly talking. I had some really interesting people approach me for supporting acts for their music, for their concerts and stuff here in the UK. So, I'm going to do a tour, an album tour straight after Phantom of Queensland in Australia and a few capital cities, which I'm really looking forward to because it's not something I was able to do. And then when I come back to the UK, I'm going to be doing them here as well. So there's a lot to do in the next year. I'm really excited. It's been a long wait, hasn't it? We've all been waiting for life to begin again. But I'm so excited that it is, and I can't wait to share all these new wonderful opportunities with you all.
Well, we're very much looking forward to seeing everything that's coming next for you. Thank you for being on to chat with me, Paul.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And I hope, if you come to New York, then I'll get to see you live also.
100%. I would love that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye. I hope you've enjoyed today's episode. It was a pleasure speaking to Paul. And as we've mentioned, we hope that you guys will all go out and support these live shows. Everyone has been giving their time for free online, but it's time to get out and support them as we're able to with restrictions lifting. Speaking of online concerts, we will have another Sound of Crossover concert coming July 25th, and it'll be about movies and musicals. So please go ahead and if you haven't already, subscribe. If you'd like to get physical copies of our magazine, you can join us over on Patreon or buy them from our website. So lots of fun things happening here, and we'll continue to try and get new interviews and features out for you every week here at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So thank you so much for joining, and we'll see you next week.